Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Just doing a quick audio check, make sure you guys can hear me all fine. Hopefully you're all doing well on this Sunday. Audio's good, guys? So if audio is good, thought we'd just hang out for like an hour or so, chat. Last live stream we did was really fun. So I thought I'd just come in and answer some questions and hang out with you guys for a little bit. It's a slow weekend for me. Not a lot going on. Okay, perfect. Confirmation on audio from a few guys. Hi, Isaiah. Hi, Etch, Nathan. Nice to see you guys in the live stream. How's your weekend going? Hey, Chappie. Hello, hello. If you guys were here last live stream, I'm now through most of my coffee instead of leaving it until like most of the way through the live stream. So I'm a bit more energized and everything today, a little earlier in the day. Hey, Tech, how you doing, man? So is there anything you guys wanted to chat about today or discuss? Any questions? That's kind of always my first priority, is to go over any questions you guys have and kind of answer that, because sometimes I let my Instagram DMs kind of build up and everything like that. And then I might not get to it for a couple weeks, and then Instagram kind of auto deletes things too if you don't get to it. So sometimes I miss it. So if you guys got any questions, please let me know. Hey, Mac, how you doing? Been a while since we've talked a lot. Hope you're doing well, man. Nice to see you. Oh, no problem at all. It was a fun one. For you guys in the chat here, I think the next one I'm going to do that's like a kind of guitar documentary kind of style is going to be on John's 63 Fiesta Red Strat, which he only used for a handful of shows back during the 2017 World Tour. And I think that was just a kind of a test meal for the Silver Sky during kind of their pre-production kind of prototyping stage, where John just went out and bought a couple really interesting early 60s strats, played them a little bit, and then we've never seen them again. But the Fiesta Red, I think everyone loves a Fiesta Red strat. So that's one where I've literally gone back into like the Wayfinder, found the old listing on Emerald City Guitars and everything. So it'll be a fun one. It'll be short, but it'll be really fun. Oh, election day in Argentina. How's that going on? Did you go and do your voting or anything? I don't know a lot about Argentinian politics, unfortunately. Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you in here as well. Would you ever get a deluxe Big Muff or consider checking one out for Sean to use a deluxe on Blood Sugar Sex Magic? Yeah, totally. Fuzz is something I've never been that big into, but I'm trying to get into it more. I know even like two of my really big influences, Chris Buck and Ariel Posen, both use a lot of fuzz. And so I think I'm kind of getting back into it, and I've been looking at a few different fuzz pedals. So deluxe Big Muff would be interesting to try out for sure. Some of those early Frusciante fuzz tones are really sweet. And so yeah, how's Ariel showing him using the 2-rock? That was sick. It was great. Ariel always puts on a really fantastic show, and he's a really good dude. Very kind of awesome to be able to kind of call Ariel a friend. Yeah, he's a really great guy. And 2 shows we did this year where he used my 2-rock, and he actually signed the back of it, which is pretty cool. If it had the spacing in between the 2-rock name and the traditional clean, I would have gotten him to sign it right in the center, like the Mayor or like the Joey Landreth. But we were both like looking at the amp, like, not sure how good that's gonna look if we do it. So he signed the back of it, which is really cool. So next time he comes to town, I'll probably loan him the rig again, which is kind of cool. Always good to see Ariel. Another question. Do you know if John used the TS10 or TS808 for Made in America? Oh, geez. Off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly what he used. I've had a few people asking me actually about doing like a full rig breakdown for Made in America, because that's an interesting one, because he broke the Klon on like the second performance, I think, after whatever he performed. He ended up breaking the switch on it, so he had to turn up like the volume on the one katana, and then I think he pulled the knob out too in order to gauge that FET stage or whatever it is in the katana, so that he had like a bit of a different stage, and then bump up the drive on the tube screamer as well, and then go from there, which is kind of cool. So it's an interesting performance. I'll do a video on it because things are kind of slow right now, so topics are a little hard to find. So you know what, that gives me a good idea. Another vote for Made in America. Off the top of my head, though, I don't know. I'd have to look at a shot off of like Getty Images or something. Question from Jake Shaw. Any ideas when you think John releases his new album? I know he's been teasing lots of new singles during this tour. Maybe a year from now, if we're lucky. I know John was doing, I think it was on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. He talked about how Sob Rock, the way that album kind of rolled out, where he did a few singles that kind of floated around for a year or 2 years, that hurt people's relationship with the album, is what he said. And I couldn't agree more. It was so heavily disappointing, in my opinion, and I'm sure you guys as well. Sob Rock comes out, 10-track album, I believe, and 3 of them, I guess I just feel like Carry Me Away and New Light, we'd had like 2 of them for over a year, almost 2 years. Kind of like, all right, so we only get 7 new songs. I completely agree with John. So he wants to write a whole album. So they had considered going in and recording, like, I think In the Neighborhood, Drifting, the songs he's been playing on tour. And he ended up kind of saying that, you know what, like, we're just going to wait and record it all at once. So maybe a single spring next year for Lucky, and then however long it takes him to get a full album out. But he's not going to record until kind of after the tour is done, from what I know. Barry 8400, hi, good evening from the Netherlands. Hey, thanks for, hopefully this time works a little bit better for some of you on the other side of the world from me. That's why I figured I'd start a live stream a little bit earlier on a Sunday, or for you guys. Like, I think some people were staying up to like 4 a.m. last time, which is just nuts, but I appreciated that a lot. Pumped for the 63 video, not a lot of info out there about it. Yeah, not a lot at all. I've done what I can to dig up what information we have, but it'd just be a fun one to kind of start documenting some of the oddball guitars and having it in one place, which I kind of like as like a little catalog on my channel of, okay, here's everything we know about this guitar, here's everything we know about this one, and it's just kind of all in one place. The UI Miss is epic from 93 Juliet Bravo. Yeah, it's so cool that John's started performing that song again, and I have a couple things actually I got to talk to you guys in the chat about, because it's got a neat little focus group here of people who are bit more maybe in tune with my channel and everything in the community in the chat. One actually is coming from this. Does anyone actually know what song the UI Miss kind of became the bridge of? I think John had said on, it was an Instagram live, maybe it was him doing Current Mood, but he mentioned that the UI Miss is actually going to become part of another song. And obviously the lyrics weren't there, but I wasn't sure if some of the music actually got used. If any of you guys know, I'd just be curious, but I might do a video just tackling the UI Miss, because that's like a kind of a cult fan favorite from that little bit he did. Sim used the Fiesta Red Stratus lives as well. Yeah, he used it with, I think, Austin, Texas, or Dallas. I forget which place in Texas he first used it, but its debut was with Jimmy Vaughn, which was really cool. And then he used it for a few performances kind of right around that time frame for a couple weeks, and then it was gone. And then we don't see it again. So that's kind of leads to my theory of him wanting to pick up a couple other really good, all original, early to mid 60s strats, and then be like, all right, here's what they all kind of have in common, even though John has a bunch of them already. I'm sure it was just an excuse maybe for him also to buy more. But it's probably like, oh yeah, you know, let's just test them out, and then I don't need it anymore because I'm all in the Silver Sky. I'll send you my crystal to demo with your traditional clean. If we were talking on Instagram, I think it was, were you the one who sent me the actual like track for the UI Miss, the John talking on stage? If that was you, I really appreciate that, number one. Yeah, I saw your message wherever we were talking. Maybe one day. I just not really wanting to pay for shipping for an amp like that there and back for one video. That won't make any of that back at this time, but maybe one day I'll hit you up, and it'd be cool to demo a crystal with the traditional clean in the mirror context, because there's different versions of the crystal out there where the earlier ones are very much JM Sig identical. Then they had to do some changing of the components from what I know. There's an old thread on the gear page where Chad, who used to work with Two Rock, kind of talked about it. The crystals I think are great sounding amps though. Just kind of like same line as the traditional clean. Phil Zizzle, Justin, thanks so much for all the great content. I'm going to the Amsterdam show next year. What deep cut should I ask for? Not myself or bigger than my body? Ooh, that's an interesting one. Number one, thank you for thanking me for the content. Amsterdam's always a great show. That's one of the shows in Europe. If I had to pick one to go to, Amsterdam, John always seems to be just completely on fire from all the footage I've seen. That's consistently a really great show. So you're going to have a good time. Not Myself is actually a really good one. It's one I haven't thought about in a while, but that's a really nice song. I think Bigger Than My Body would be the one I'd probably go for. Just if enough people are asking for it, maybe John would add it back into the set list. I'm not sure if he wants to tour with the Rogerland Adrenaline setup and everything. Like with his current rig, the way it stands, you probably have to do something like the psychedelic amplifier machine where he has like a little looper that brings it in off stage in a rack unit, but then he has to sing it up with the drummer and everything. So I don't know. Bigger Than My Body, I just would love to see performed live electrically again. So if enough people ask him to do it, maybe we'd get it. But I think it's very unlikely. Not Myself is a great one too, though. Can't go wrong either way. Have you ever played an 83 John Cruz Black one? So how was it? Also, if it on Made in America, would be amazing. Totally. I'll do one for sure on Made in America. That's I've had a few people ask for it, so I'll put it on the short list of stuff to make for you guys. Haven't played an 83 John Cruz Black one. You guys know the London guitarist on Instagram. Next time I make it over to the UK, I'll definitely spend some time with him and get to play one there. Or if I ever make it to Nashville, maybe I'll get to hang out with Jesse and play one there as well. One day, I'd love to. But a lot of people have said those guitars are just so brilliant, and I don't doubt it. They're absolutely wicked. Robert, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. How was the? I saw your post on Facebook a little bit ago about the show the other night. Sounds like a really, really great time. Your seats were your front row dead center, right? That's just insane. That'd be an absolutely epic time, dude. Do you think John's a bit scared to release a new album being now an independent artist? I don't think so. I think now, if anything, John's maybe a bit more excited to, because he's got no one telling him what to do. And I feel like Columbia was kind of pressuring him with the release of Sob Rock because maybe they thought it had Grammy potential or something. I don't know. I've heard rumblings. No concrete evidence on that at all. But I think maybe he kind of was a bit pressured. That's my opinion. And maybe that's also why songs that we had for so long that, in my opinion, also didn't really fit the vibe of Sob Rock ended up being on Sob Rock. Like, I don't think Carry Me Away, New Light, because it's kind of got that Prince feel a little bit to it almost. New Light I can see a little bit, but like Carry Me Away, and I guess I just feel like I don't really think those actually fit the vibe of Sob Rock, even though they, like John says, it's a complete thoughted album, one vibe. I don't really agree with that. So maybe they had something to do with those singles actually winding up on it, but yeah, I don't know. Was light at the end of the tunnel? Light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not getting your reference. Do you know if John played Who You Love or Say at any moment of the solo tour? No. Off the top of my head, no. Those would have been two big ones, I think, because one he wrote with Katy Perry. He mentioned that one on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, that he really loves that song. He's very proud of that song and how him and Katy both sang. He was very proud of that. But I think just because it's with Katy, he's probably never going to perform that song again. Say is an interesting one too, because it's very popular, not on any album, just a single. And John's like never performed it. But I actually really like that one. And I think it's one of his few ones that's had a lot of radio play. So I'm kind of surprised he hasn't thrown it on. Hamish Williamson, the basic Mayer signal chain of quality buffer, tuner katana, OD1, OD2, slapback, delay, chorus, province delay does not cause significant toe sunk. Cheers from New Zealand. I think it kind of depends. Like, I don't personally pay that much attention to tone suck. Maybe that's a bad thing, but when I build my own rigs, I kind of just let them be. And if they sound good, they sound good. If I notice that there's a noticeable tone loss, then I'll do my best to kind of fix it. But generally, I'll have like a nice buffered pedal near the end-ish of the chain. The Provenance delay, though, if you're talking about the Chrono, that has the revitalizer circuit in it, which is kind of supposed to help buffer everything and kind of prevent tone loss. So if you have that at the end or at the very end, you shouldn't be experiencing that much tone loss. But if you're really that concerned about it and want to experiment with, obviously, I mean, if you can just play through your pedal board, then plug direct in. If you notice tone loss, see if you can EQ it out slightly with the rig plugged in. If not, then look at like a quality input-output buffer is what I'd say, something where you just plug your guitar into, runs through the whole board, runs back out through the same buffer, goes out to the amp. That's what I would do, but it's nothing that I say that much. Hey, Ray, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good today. Got to keep remembering drinking my coffee. That was me. I sent you the UMS and do have the crystal. I'm not sure which crystal mine is. I'll have to look. I don't know if there's any way to tell without pulling them apart, but if it's an earlier serial number, it might have different parts. And that's just from what I read on a thread with Chad. If you DM me on Instagram, I can try and find you the link. I think I have screenshots though. So I'll send some over to you if you want to read up on it. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of like the PRS mod thing where they were kind of tweaking it and didn't really say anything about the circuit. And then same thing with the crystal. It seemed like they were kind of tweaking things a little bit and experimenting maybe with demanded parts or something. But there's a thread out there I'll send you. But either way, I think the crystal, like any 2-rock, is just going to be brilliant and all the amp in the world you need. Crying out loud music. I like that username. Saw him on the solo tour in Boston. So amazing. Really appreciate your insight on gear. You're the man. Keep it up, buddy. Well, love us. Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And as always, all the comments and everything, the encouragement just keeps me going. And I do it for you guys. So thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I got some of you guys here before we go through some more of the comments and questions you guys have. One question first off, or not a question, but just an ask. If you ever want to support me in the channel, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'll be on the Chairman of the Board's podcast through Vertex. We just did a nice like Mayor gear talk for an hour, which was really fun. Just chatting about John's gear and trying to kind of explain certain things and answering some questions they had. So if you guys can tune into that, it goes live, but it's not live like we recorded it 2 weeks ago. But if you guys can tune in or just throw a little comment in being like, hey, like, you know, great, you guys had Justin on or something like that, I'd really appreciate it, because then goal for me, I think, would be to be on Dipped in Tones podcast to talk about John Mayer's gear. That'd be like crazy, because Rhett, from a YouTube perspective, is someone I really look up to from what he's done and how successful of a channel he's built and his quality and everything. Rhett's like, I very much have looked towards Rhett for a lot of inspiration and just as kind of the kind of YouTuber I want to be, I guess, slightly, just in like the quality and like care that he puts in. So, and Dipped in Tone actually follows me on Instagram. No idea why. Just one day I got followed and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. I watch all their stuff, so that was interesting, but nothing ever came out of it, which I thought maybe it would. They're following me, but never know. But hey, yeah, if you guys can show your support when that goes live on that video, that helped me out a lot. So I appreciate that. Well, that's about the PRS SE. I assume you're referring to the Silver Sky SE. I loved it. I had one on loan for a month just to kind of test out, and it was great. PRS never sent it to me. When I say on loan, I bought it from a store. They had a 30-day return window, and then I returned it after 30 days. So on loan. But like, I actually debated keeping it because it was really good. The pickups are very nice and different, but the neck is fantastic. It feels like a Silver Sky in every way, really. I wouldn't say the core Silver Sky is worth the price increase over it. It is better, and it has, you know, the pickups are just, they just have that sound, and there's higher dynamics with the pickups. But I mean, the PRS SE Silver Sky for the price is just fantastic. It's super good. I really liked it. And if I can keep everything that I'd like, then I definitely would have one just to have, because I genuinely enjoyed playing it. See, Talking Watches episode of John Mayer and Ed Sheeran, a great watch. I must say, yes, I did. I think I only got a few minutes left on it. I had to run after watching it, but I really liked it. Did any of you guys pick up the Ed Sheeran G-Shock? I'm curious, because it's got that Mayer connection, but for some people, I don't think there's quite enough, and maybe not enough of the story. In my opinion, there wasn't quite enough story with the Ed Sheeran one, but they're like, oh, we just did the color of my album. Where like John kind of has a bit more inspiration with like old keyboards and stuff like that. I didn't pick it up personally, but I'm curious if some of you guys did. What other colors would you want to see for the PRS Silver Sky SE? Ooh, that's interesting. What colors would you guys like to see? I don't know, to be honest. What other colors? They kind of got the basics all rounded out here. I'd like to see maybe just some different takes on like different shades of like blue, green, purple, red. They're never going to go down like what comes to my head is like Sonic Blue, Fiesta Red, those kind of colors of Surf Green, but they're never going to do it. So I don't know. Maybe something with a little bit more metallic finish, actually, like a pearlescent color, I think would be kind of cool, but that might be too premium of a finish for them to do. But maybe on like the core models, like the original Onyx, where it kind of had a little bit more of that metal flake, especially in the horn, the lower horn, where it had like that almost gray shine to it. They did a little bit more kind of playing around with pearlescent colors. I think that could be cool and very nice and modern. What was your reaction to that Why You Know Love Me tease in the solo tour? I hope he plays it live soon, as he said he might stop touring for a while. I thought it was really cool. And one of those things, maybe in the moment, John just was like, ooh, let's just play around with these chords and see what the crowd's reaction is. But there are whenever you go to a show, I'm sure you'll see at least one sign request for Why You Know Love Me. There was a couple at the show I went to. Some of the footage I've seen a few as well, and he just kind of skips over it just because of the flack and everything he got with that song. But I don't know. If I was John, I'd just be kind of like, hell with it. I wrote the song, I'm going to perform it. But I thought it was great, but I don't think it'll ever happen. Hey, Victor, greetings back from Canada. So cool to see so many people from around the world. This is awesome. Hey, Wanpa, how you doing? Costa Rica as well. That's amazing. That's just so cool. And then we have Wisconsin as well. That's amazing. Elliot I can't say for long. Had to see what was up for a few minutes. Wish you could hang out longer. Hey, just thanks for tuning in. Appreciate just anyone coming and say hi for a little bit. These are just fun to connect with you guys and talk a little bit. What would it take for him to permanently perform Why You Know Love Me live? I really hope he does someday. If everyone goes and starts listening to that song and it all of a sudden starts to creep up in the charts for John, like in his metrics, like on Spotify or whatever, is like one of his most listened to songs, that's probably the push he'd need maybe to go over it. Or if everyone at a show all holds up signs, Why You Know Love Me, or if what someone should do, because John really likes the games that people have done, where they have like the sign and it's like pick a number and then you'll play the song that's behind the door. They go 1, 2, 3, and every single option is Why You Know Love Me. I wonder what he would do then, because it's almost like a you got him kind of scenario where every single option is that. But at the same time, it's like if he really feels that strongly about not performing it, it's kind of hard from a fan base perspective to push him to do it. You want him to perform it if he wants to perform it. So I don't know. It's just a shame because I do think that song's kind of cool. Musically speaking, I really like it. Lyrical wise, it's not one I listen to really ever, but it'd be kind of cool. What's the first thing you'd ask John if I met him? If I met John and could only ask him one question, that's an interesting one. Do you guys have a question you would ask John if you met him? The first thing I'd ask him, I don't know, because I could go in different directions with that. Part of me is kind of like, what do you think of my channel? Because I assume he's aware of it. I assume he's aware of like the Instagram following that he has in terms of his gear, the YouTube following he has in terms of his gear. He's aware enough about it that I feel like John at least kind of knows that I exist. I'd be kind of surprised if he didn't, because he's very in tune with everything. So maybe I'd ask him what he thinks of my channel, or I'd ask him, when will we get the balance of Fender and PRS on stage again in terms of the guitars you play? That'd be my question. Because that's something I'm really looking forward to, is having that balance of Fenders and Silver Skies on stage. Just saw him 2 days ago in Baltimore. Was shocked when he played the first half of Something's Missing and Gravity's an Encore. Wish he played the black one like he did in MSG. Yes, I've heard about this. I haven't seen, I've seen a little bit of the footage of Gravity, because that was obviously the first thing I went to was Gravity. Did he play the black one again? And it was the charcoal Silver Sky, which was cool, which was really cool. I know, I think a lot of us were just hoping for the black one again, but it almost like begs a question, like, why did he bring it out? He brought it up for one show. If he's going to perform Gravity, maybe every like 5 shows even, the black one's playable enough where he can do it with it. So I don't know. It's weird. I haven't seen the footage of Something's Missing yet. So I'd be very curious how he performed it, if he had to change his tuning, or if he just played it in standard and just transcribed it when he performed it, if that makes sense. No, that'd be cool though. That sounds like a really great show though you went to. Roxy Pink and Orion Green and SE for sure. Yeah, I mean, those colors would be great, but I would not hold your breath for that. It's one of the few things that actually like really defines the difference between the core and the SE models. They will never get the exact color. They might get like an Orion Green-esque color, or a Roxy Pink kind of esque, like a pink one, maybe a bit brighter pink, like the original one that they used for Last Train Home, for example, like the original one from that music video, but not real Roxy Pink. That's one thing that they just will never do, unfortunately, is give you the exact same color. They'll do something close, maybe, but not the exact same one. Okay, we got a few of you guys in here right now. Before we move on to the questions again, I want to take a poll. put a 1 in the chat if you listen to Chris Buck and Cardinal Black. That album, January Came Close, is probably that album, and then Ariel's Reasons Why are my two favorite albums from this year by a landslide. I love both those albums to death. So I'm curious if any of you guys actually listen to Chris Buck and Cardinal Black. So put a 1 in the chat if you do. Because I was debating making a video on a specific solo that Chris did as like part of my inspiration. And this is just a nice way to get a poll. If there's some of you guys who do it, the only thing is if you listen to them, you got to watch the video, because some of my videos haven't been doing that well lately. So I need you guys to watch them, please. But yeah, if some of you guys listen to Chris Buck, it'd be interesting to maybe talk about him just a little bit, because gear wise, where my head's going right now is getting a little bit closer to Chris and Ariel. Both of them, I know Ariel does run like a blues breaker on all the time. I think Chris Buck does too, and he has a bunch of different blues breaker pedals on his board. So I've been kind of playing around with the idea of running a blues breaker around all the time, just when I'm messing around and stuff like that. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about Chris, because I actually asked Chris Buck a question on Instagram and he answered on the gear signal chain for me, which I thought might be cool to talk about. From Mac, I want to see two tones like some of the earlier prototypes with the second color on the horn. Yeah, that'd be cool. Like the shadow prototype, that was wicked. If they did something like that, oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, like that shadow prototype. That would be really cool. That would sell, I think, very, very well if they did something like that. Or even just like the Onyx one, where you just have a metallic flake that then changes a bit in the lower horn with the paint flaking that they do. That'd be really great. Teletone Monkey. Hi from England. Gotta admit, Jam, and you have influenced my live board. Oh my god, that's amazing. Currently running Zen Drive, Tumnus, Katana, Chrono Delay, Move, Zen Drive, TS9-ish from after Tumnus Clone. Prefer it. You? Yeah, I think you could kind of go about it either way. Like either you're boosting it and that's kind of taking over your main overdrive tone, or kind of running Clone style last. I think either way you do it, it's going to sound great. Zen Drive is a beautiful sounding overdrive. When I had that pedal on my own kind of personal board, when I was running like the mock version, like the replica of Maris, and had my own as well, I was running actually Zen Drive as like the final gain stage, because I really like the tone of it overall, and running different drives into it, I was able to sculpt the tone with the Zen Drive a bit more. That's what I personally really liked. So you're kind of doing what I was doing in the past, but either way, that sounds like a really wicked rig. I have a footage of something's missing. It's not. I still be down to send it to you. Yeah, totally. If any of you guys ever get good footage, please DM it to me on Instagram, and then that way I can try and use it and help create more videos, which would be great. Greg Melita, do you think SRV and John's Tech both use dummy coils to make their unique sound at all? Maybe. Will we ever know? Probably not. Be interesting to see if there's anything to that whole dummy coil thing with the black one. Because that's kind of like one of the key parts of the story. But at the same time, like I have no personal experience with dummy coil, so I don't know exactly how much they do in terms of tone shaping. As far as I know, it's mainly just for the hum and 2 and 4 positions, right? So would those really alter the tone of the guitar a lot? Maybe make it a little bit more mellow? Be interesting to kind of maybe do a bit more of a deep dive into it. But when it comes to the black one and all those little peculiar things, it's just kind of hard to like do a deep dive into something when you're like, oh, does it even have it at the end of the day? Victor says I'm from Brazil and went to see John in 2017 Search for Everything tour. What did you think of those amp choices for that tour? Why do you think you decided to use those amps? The 2017 World Tour tone is interesting. I've gone back and watched a lot of footage, and if you take John's tone as a whole across all the different eras and everything, it definitely is not one that I'd personally highlight. But listening to a lot of footage, it definitely sounds better than I remember it to be, even from when I saw that was my first Mare show. Actually, it was 2017. I was a bit disappointed in the tones. I kind of was like, it sounded good and it was great to experience John for the first time, but I was just kind of like, you could tell it just didn't quite have the sound of Continuum, which I think a lot of people pull for and want. I think just because he used those, because the J mod was kind of a brand new thing. And he was like, well, we designed this amplifier, so I'm going to try and revoice it and work with it to run for my tone on my solo tour as well. And I think at that time too, he wasn't really into using a few of the other amps, one of the other amps, I'll say, at that time frame. So I think too, for him, he kind of wanted a break from using one of the brands as well, which I think kind of influenced it too. But interestingly enough, you then go to the trio set list and he brings out one of the Dumble steel string singers and keeps it dual professional. That tone was really nice. I really liked the trio tones when he used it. Sometimes he just used the regular rig with the J mods and it sounded good. Like, it's John, he always has good tone, but it's just not my favorite. But I think, yeah, just a couple different factors influencing what he wanted to do. Few ones in the chat talking about Cardinal Black. That's good, just to know, in case, you know, no one's going to be bored if I talk a little bit the odd time here and there about Chris Buck. JP Sax, I like him a lot. I don't listen to a lot of his stuff, to be honest. I really should, but the little bit I've listened to him, I've really enjoyed. Once saw a video, I think it was last year, of Justin Bieber saying John played some guitar in a new album he was working on. That'd be cool crossover. That rings a bell to me too. I'm not sure exactly what that was, but I like Justin Bieber's Purpose album. That album was pretty good. The rest of it, I don't listen to really at all. Like, some singles you hear on the radio, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a good song, it's catchy. But the Purpose, or is it, yeah, was it Purpose? Is that the album? I think I was thinking of the Purpose tour, just because that was when I got into streetwear, and that era with him wearing all Fear of God and like Ultra Boost and Yeezys, that was just like a very big and like the streetwear scene back then. So that's why too I kind of connect with that album and some of the songs. But that was like a pretty decent album. Some cool ones on there. Yeah, that'd be a cool crossover. I really would like, though, John and Chris Stapleton to do something like that song they did. I just remembered I Didn't Care, that they made up in Nashville. I actually really liked that song, and it'd be kind of cool if they one day released that, or Keith Urban, a bit higher up on my crossover list. Japan and JP Sax, the opening act. Have you been to the fall tour? No, I haven't been to the fall tour. I went to one show, and I think one was enough for me personally, just because I'd have to pay to fly somewhere to the States, and it's just what it costs. I'm just like, I saw one, and it was brilliant, and I couldn't ask for a better night. So it's like, I doubt the next show I'll go to will just be that level for me personally. So I'm not going to do it. But yeah, I do like JP Sax. Don't listen to him a ton. I should, though. I should. Yeah, I think there definitely is some crossover between the text and maybe the like, you know, they just have had conversations about, okay, like, what did you do for Stevie? I'm sure John was like, because he's such a big SRV head. What did you do for Stevie around this time? What were you doing with his guitars? Was there anything unique? And I'm sure Renee was just telling him, because Stevie's no longer with us. So he doesn't even have Stevie to be like, hey, you're giving away all my tone secrets. In Renee's mind, and I think a lot of our minds, John's kind of, you know, really taken that SRV mantra and popularized it, and, you know, really carried that torch, so to speak, for a lot of people. So I'm sure they've had lots of conversations, and Renee's been like, oh, you should do this, or this is what maybe I did to all of his amplifiers. You don't know, right? Like, what the conversation that, but I'm sure there's some connection. Like, I think I touched on the Demicoil thing already a little bit. Andreas, hey, how's it going, man? Have you heard about John Cruz Guitars going out of business? Yeah, I did. Really sad to hear that, John Cruz. I think just the climate right now and everything is very difficult. I think it's a very hard time to start a guitar company, I think, too, because after the post kind of COVID, I can't say the whole name because YouTube will demonetize me or whatever. They get very angry if you bring up the actual name, because of what happened in 2020. There was that whole big gear boom. Everyone was buying things like absolutely crazy. I could buy and sell gear so easily. It was amazing. I tried something out and I didn't like it, I could sell it the next day. Easy. Now I'm sitting on stuff I don't use anymore because no one's buying anything. So I think just in general, it's a very hard market to start a very ultra high-end boutique brand, no matter who you are. Carlos Lopez, I know, has his own brand, and it looks very interesting. I saw it on Anderton's, actually. They had a video where they featured one of his guitars, and it's insanely expensive, though. I think that's kind of the whole debate, too. Do you like the builder enough to not buy like a Masterbuilt Strat or a custom shop Gibson or whatever, to go for like something a bit off-brand? It's too bad. Maybe Fender will kind of forgive John Cruz and that whole BS kind of thing that went down, and just bring him back because he is one of the best to ever do it. And even if he just, I think even if he just stuck to making pickups, because I'd love to try and find a pair of the John Cruz Master Design pickups that Mayer has in his own Sonic Blue Strat from that Master Built run. I'd love to try those pickups up because that's kind of where I'm at with my Strat is I need new pickups and I'm just being lazy and haven't bit the bullet on actually like doing a deep dive into pickups yet. John Cruz started making pickups again. I think that would be very successful because that's a lot more attainable for people like Ron Ellis, right? Like very high end, very expensive, but I think that's a bit more a business model that maybe would do a little bit better from him. Yeah. He needs to do a tour with the trio for sure. That would be one show I would fly across the world in a heartbeat without like skipping a beat. If it was like a true trio show, I would. But I wouldn't want to hear like it being a night of like where most of the songs are like Gravity, Vultures. I'd be like, no, I'm not here to hear those songs. I'm here to hear another kind of Green. Good Love Is on the Way. Who Did You Think I Was? Try. Maybe bring in, you know, Crossroads and a few other songs, but I'm here to hear trio songs, not songs I can hear in any other Mayer show. It's hard to judge albums as like what's better and what's not. There's a lot of people Born and Raised is his best album, and that came after Continuum. And I'm sure maybe people thought during the Continuum era, how can John possibly top this? So I think it's a bit subjective. For me, Continuum is his best album in terms of the one I like the most. I don't think that album could ever be replaced just the way even sonically where he is right now. I don't think he's tonally wise, even he's not there. So if he made an album right after the 2019 World Tour that wasn't sob rock, but maybe a bit more of the vibe of the 2019 World Tour, more high gain kind of tones, really just going nuts with the solos and everything, like 3-minute outro solos. If he was in that and did a more guitar heavy album right at that point, I think maybe that could have been a very brilliant album, but we didn't get it. I personally don't think I'll ever like one of John's albums more than Continuum as like a whole piece. But Helpless is one of my favorite songs ever, and I think the Search for Everything's really good. It's not Continuum level, but I think we'll get maybe songs that we all really like a lot more than a whole album. From Antonia, which Ron Ellis pickups would you recommend for a 64 Project guitar? 5060s or 64s? I don't have experience with either firsthand, so keep that in mind before I say anything else. I only ever like to give real insight or opinion on something that I've played and that I can actually like listen, I actually kind of know what this sounds like or have my own strong opinions based on, you know, real experience. So I haven't played either pickups. I'm kind of doing a 64 Project guitar as well. That's what my Sonic Blue Strat is. It's a 64 reissue. So I'm going to go with 64s. My friend, the London guitarist, who I trust very much so in terms of tone, he had both sets and he is now using the 64s over the 5060s. Jake Loosemore, who you guys all know, I'm sure too, another really good buddy of mine. He's been just hammering me to buy the 64s. That's what he's using. And so that's probably what I'm personally going to buy. Both, I think, are going to be fantastic. It's like, what 2-rock model do I buy? Well, at the very least, you're going to have a great amp no matter what. So I would go 64s personally, because that's what I am doing. And people I trust have told me to do that. But listen to demos, make your own kind of conclusion on there. Rockefeller, hey, how's it going, man? Nice to see you back again. Pulled the trigger on a Bandmaster and got a 212 cab with it loaded with Oxford speakers. Just wondering if you could recommend new speakers for that Mayer Stevie Ray Vaughan thing. And again, kind of like pickups, I don't know a lot about speakers. With my Bandmaster, what I do use is G1265 selections. I really like them a lot. Those are kind of the very safe option for Mayer tones as a whole, G1265s. I know EVs as well, a lot of people are big fans of, and I think that's what John had in the Bandmaster speaker cab during the Sob Rock tour, was an EV M12L or something like that. I don't know enough about speakers to have it memorized. Something like that, 12 ML or something like that. I'm sure one of you guys can correct me what it is, but I think I got the number and some of the letters right. Yeah, maybe chat with I know my friend Brian Mandel, he has a Bandmaster going into a 2-rock cab, and that has the 2-rock kind of G1265 speaker things, the 2-rock brand ones. Sounds really great too. If you ever confused about speakers, maybe try hitting up Jake Loosemore, because he has experienced swapping out speakers quite a lot, and he might be a really good person to chat with about that. Don't listen to any Chris Buck, but he's an incredible player, so 100% watch a video you make on him. Yeah, I think just like there's one solo of his that I've always really enjoyed that came out last year, and I know the whole gear signal chain now. So maybe I just talk about that from like a gear perspective and just change it up because it's stuff I listen to a lot. Check out the album if you don't listen to any of his stuff. If you like his playing, it's very guitar heavy, and it's very clear that Chris isn't not necessarily the frontman, but it's very much Chris's band in a way of like a lot of people listen to them and they're following kind of guru from Chris Buck mainly. That's who people really know from the band. And so it's very guitar heavy. And that's what I really like about it. Check it out if you haven't, give it a chance. Lex O'Neill Instruments Vent. Only ever played the Vent. Loved it. It was great. John's used the Lex quite a lot too. Again, another case of I haven't played the Lex nor shot them out, so very hard to say. The Neo Instruments sounds fantastic. It's a really great Leslie simulator. So I think that one, just because I know it and it sounds great, but you're not going to go wrong with either. It's like another one of those cases. They're both really great pedals. So I wouldn't be that stressed about it. Hey, Dan, how you doing? Still thinking about Ron pickups. Yeah, I think I'm just a little bit behind in the chat right now, clearly. But yeah, if I found on Reverb a pair of John Cruz Master Design Strat pickups, I'd probably buy those right away on Reverb because they're very hard to find at this point. Then I'd probably still get 64 Ron Ellis's and then figure out which I like between the two of them, and then just sell which one I don't like. I have so many Blackman clone pickups here. Genesis, Mark Foley, McLaughlin, Elite, Ron Ellis, 67 if you want to know how they compare. Yeah, for sure. If I ever do a black one build, I will for sure hit you up. I'm kind of going away. I think the black one sound for me is a little too merry. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just a little bit to that direction where if I really like just having one Strat. I never found myself playing when I had the Silver Sky and the Mayor Sig. I was only playing the Silver Sky. So right now I'm at that point where I'd rather get different guitars that do different things than multiple Strats. So I want one that's a bit more balanced and not quite super merry. But if I do a black one build at one point, that'd be sweet. Yeah, that'd be really cool. John doing. He's done a lot of really interesting covers over the year. I think that'd be kind of cool to hear him do an album with covers for sure. Opinion on Heavier Things. I consider that album more of a perfection than Continuum. Ooh, that might be a hot take for some people in here. I think that album is criminally underrated. I love that. You guys know Clarity is my favorite song. As a whole, I could listen to that album front to back. Daughters is one I'd probably skip, to be honest. I just heard that song way too many times where I'm just kind of over it. But as a whole, I think that is a really great snapshot in time at where John's head is going. You can really hear the influence in his guitar playing and it being really a predecessor to the trio, which then, of course, leads to Continuum. I think that album's very special. And the fact that the solo tour, it's finally getting a lot more love is amazing. I'd love to hear more songs off of that album get played a lot more. Speaking of Chris Buck, are you familiar with the Fender Pelt Fuzz? It does everything from light overdrive to gnarly, doomy fuzz. No, I'll have to check that out. I haven't played any of Fender's new stuff, but that's some stuff that's rather easily accessible where I live, where I could probably try it out. So I'll have to check into that because I want to kind of experiment with different fuzz pedals. I'll have to look into that one. Maybe you could write new songs for the trio for a tour. I'm all for nostalgia, but I miss new Bluesy Mirror songs. I think that'd be amazing. Do you guys imagine they actually decide, you know what? John's independent now. Hell with it. Let's make a trio album. Re-record Good Love Is On The Way and Who Did You Think I Was? But then let's throw in new songs. If they did half like professionally recorded original trio songs that we never got, then bring in new songs. I think that'd be great. I would bet the house against it ever happening, but I'd die if it happens. I'd love that. John, how you doing, brother? Nice to see you. Next guitar purchase. I'm between a few things as always. I've been slowing down my spending quite a lot. Like I sold a bit to fund my custom shop strat just because I'm like, I don't want to put more money into gear right now. So when some stuff moves, I'll consider buying one again. I'm kind of partial to a mule caster right now, just like REL's, just to kind of expand. And at that point, it's baritone. Get into learning how to play slide a lot. It's just kind of a different thing. It's very unique, and it'd be something totally new. So maybe Mulecaster. How many of the jam strats you think have Brazilian rosewood fretboard? I think not many, as they'd be difficult to chart with the restrictions, especially you. Maybe only on the Monterey. I don't know how that would work because he's not. There's got to be a workaround for artists like that who have something that you're not supposed to bring. I don't know, actually. That's interesting. I never really thought about the logistics of trying to transport a Brazilian rosewood fretboard around when you have all the paperwork and everything that's needed to get it across borders. There's got to be a system for it. Or maybe they just don't care because he's not selling it or anything. He's just a touring artist. So maybe they're just like, whatever, we don't care. And then they bug all of us about it when we buy new things. Like every guitar I've ever sold that I've had or bought that I've had to bring across from Canada to the US, it's always been, what kind of rosewood is it? And I'm like, I've literally written on the thing, there's no Brazilian rosewood. Then they call me up. Does it have Brazilian rosewood or anything endangered, mother pearl? And I'm always like, no, I literally wrote it right in the notes. I'm like, oh, okay. We'll release from customs now. It's like, sick. Thanks for holding it up for like 3 days for no reason. I get super annoyed whenever I hear that, but there's got to be a way to go around it. The two-rock. The two-rock's always my main thing if I play one amp. When I'm at home and I am allowed to play a little bit louder without bugging anyone else in the house, I'll run the Vibroverb and the two-rock together. But the Vibro needs to be on 3 to just for the amp to have enough power to really breathe. So, but those are the 2 I use. I don't touch the Bandmaster at all just because of I have the Vibroverb. And I'm just liking that more personally right now. So, but the two-rock is one I'll always just play because that master volume is so brilliant and how it works. I can play that amp super quietly and it sounds fantastic. Obviously, when you turn it up, it does sound better, but the master volume works so well that for lower volume bedroom playing, like bedroom level playing, I'm not in a bedroom, obviously, but it sounds great. Any thoughts on making a video on the history of John's Dead & Company guitars and gear now that it's mostly come to an end? That's actually a cool idea. Maybe I'll do kind of like a history of all the gear of Dead & Company. On the last live stream I did, I talked about, though, how Dead & Company is one part of John's career that I'm not like super into just because I'm not a Grateful Dead fan. I've struggled to get into their music. I wish I would have gone and seen a show just to have experienced that part of John's career. But as far as going for the actual Grateful Dead aspect of it, which is the whole thing pretty much, it's one that I don't really care that much about personally. So it's kind of funny. In the last live stream, I talked about how like I only make content that I like to make, and I like to make stuff about John's gear no matter what. But like if there was anything that was ever slightly inauthentic that I make, it was Dead & Company because I never watched any of the shows even. I just was like, okay, I can make videos on this because there's people who care about it, but I don't care that much about what John's using on Dead & Company. But that said, yeah, that'd be kind of a cool video. It'd be like probably like an hour long, which would be really fun. So like making that Black One documentary was actually a lot of fun. It's a shitload of work, but it was fun. So maybe I'll do like a whole documentary on the gear of Dead & Company and start with the prototyping of the Super Eagle, the development of the J Mod amp, then right in. That'd actually be kind of cool. That's a great idea, Mac. That one I need to add to my list of videos that I have that I might be like. I have always like a list of ongoing stuff in my phone in my notes section of videos that I'm going to make, and then it just kind of rotates, and then I decide to make one, and then new stuff happens, then they all get delayed, and then sometimes I just never make them. But I put that one in there because that actually could be cool. That could be fun because, like I said, it's kind of come to an end now, so we have kind of the bookends of it now. And gear. Not sure if you're looking for some new music, but another YouTuber by the name of Matthew Scott should put an album that's incredible vintage strats through vintage Fender amps. It's glorious. Yeah, if it's vintage strats and vintage Fender amps, I'm sure it's glorious. I'll check that out. Matthew Scott. I have a list from the last one we did too, live stream, where you guys were suggesting stuff for me to check out or look into. Check that out. What are your thoughts on using the HX Stomp from Airtones based on tones you've heard? I have a Victory V40 Deluxe and love it, but can't record well with it, which is where the Stomp would come in. I'm a analog tube guy at heart. That's why I got rid. I'm sorry if I'm repeating some stuff from the last live stream, but I got rid of the aux because I was never happy with how my recorded tones with the aux sounded. Then you guys all know Gabe Bergman. Then he told me, well, it's because you're an idiot and you weren't using I was recording it wrong, essentially not using the right method to get the most authentic tones. So in hindsight, I probably could have kept that and kept recording with it. But that's also a very expensive and kind of pain in the ass setup to like acquire and build, which is why either way I want to get a mic for my voice and then mic set up for the cabs, and then maybe I'll revisit that kind of thing as well. I think they're good. Like John's Fractal stuff all sounds great. In the room, I think that's where the difference really is, and I think John can even attest to now that he's had a 2-rock traditional clean for a bit. There is a difference between having an amp that's pushing air and the dynamics and the feel of a real amplifier versus something that's digital. I think there is a difference there. So for recording purposes, I think you can get away with it a lot more. But for your own enjoyment, me personally, I don't think there's it's just not the same. You just can't compare it personally. But recording, even that, like I said, Axe stuff does a really good job. So for that kind of purposes, I'd say, yeah, go for it. If you can find some tones you like out of it, I think that's good. Hey, Mick, can you do a video on the Zen Drive and when he used it? If I knew when John used the Zen Drive, I would have done that video 2 years ago. But I have no idea. I've seen zero footage of him stepping on it at all. And when the Zen Drive 1 was in the rack kind of in 2008 time frame, a little bit here and there, no idea when he used it. If and when I figure that out, I will. But I've watched a lot of footage from the 2019 tour when John had the Zen Drive. Never seen him once step on the Zen Drive 2. Never seen him once step on the Smoky Signal. So I couldn't tell you. Could not tell you. If I ever figure that out, I will for sure beeline for making that video because that's something I really want to know. Why'd you prefer the Silver Sky over the JM Sig? I don't know. I think the pickups have a bit to do with it. The Big Dippers are fun and they're, they don't sound bad, but I just like the way the Silver Sky played. I liked the actual neck on it a little bit better. I just felt more comfortable. Maybe the radius and the way they actually made that 7 1/4 work beautifully. I enjoyed, and just the tweaks that they made to the body of the Silver Sky, just how like the lower frets were a little bit more easily accessible. The fact that it had a 22nd fret, I really liked because learning some Cardinal Black, Chris Buck stuff, pretty much every song he uses a 22nd fret on. So now with my Strat, I struggle. So I just can't hit some of those notes now, but that's whatever. But I don't know. I just liked it. And it was a newer guitar too. I'd had the JM Sig since new from like 2011, 2012. So it just was new, but I did prefer the Silver Sky over the JM Sig. It just felt like a little bit more refined. That's just my opinion, though. Have I considered some VIP tickets to be able to meet John at some point? The thought of meeting John kind of gives me some anxiety, and not for the reason that you might think at first of me saying anxiety in terms of, oh my God, I'm going to go meet a hero of mine. It gives me some anxiety because, like I've mentioned, I'm fairly certain John would be kind of aware of the channel and like what I do. And I'm not sure how he would feel. Like I try and skirt that balance of respecting John's privacy and then giving you guys the correct information and making content around it. Josh Scott told me I was doing a good job of that when him and I chatted very briefly about the channel. He thought I was doing a great job of that sort of thing. So that's just all I'd want to do. And I'd be very defeated if I met John and he was like, I really don't like what you're doing. And if he knew who I was. That'd be like a worst case scenario for me. And then I'd be like, oh, fuck. All right, well, Here we go. So then that kind of opens up a new question that I've thought about before, where it's if John ever got a hold of me, was like, hey, could you not make videos on my pedal boards when they come up, when I start touring or something like that? I would do it. If John asked me to, I would for sure do it. Out of respect for him, I just pivot in what I talk about, or be like, hey, once your tour is done, are you cool with me making a video on a pedal board of yours? Once you're done touring, or a certain, like after a few shows, whatever it is, to try and, you know, make him happy with what I do. But I've thought about it, and getting to meet him, but I don't think he really does. He do VIP anymore? I don't know, but that'd be cool to be able to meet John at some point. Either way, but it's just so expensive. Maybe one day. Hey, thanks. Glad you can make it, SVT. Okay, I'm getting behind on chat. I got to pick it up a little bit here. Cowtown Customs. I have a Brandon wound cell I pick up some my Swamp Ash Strat, and they're the 63 half JM sound. I used to have a James Brown built custom send you a Coupe 2 amp. Ooh. Oh, you use a James Brown custom built. That sounds like a cool amp. I'll have to check them out. I'm not too familiar with it, but I'll have to check that out. Brandon wound Sally pickups. That's another one I'm not super familiar with. I'll have to check both those out though. But that sound, that's kind of like the sound I'm going for. Not quite the Silver Sky sound, but more closer to 63 than the black one, if that makes sense. I got a Super Fuzz recently, never played it. It definitely has the guess I just feel like tone. You can improvise and groove on it. A totally unique thing. I really want to try one. Even the JHS Supreme Fuzz, I've been kind of wanting to try out, but my store, all the stores locally have been sold out of it and haven't gotten a new one in for a while. So I'm kind of like, when it comes in, I'd like to try. JK Lammy 679 Silver Sky SEs. Do I pull a trigger? I would. I think you're talking about the big sale they're doing. If you've ever been wanting one, now is the time. You can get some really good deals on those guitars. If you have the ability to return it, even with the sale, even better. But if you're looking to kind of dive into the Silver Sky, I think at that price, it's a very strong buy at the discount. There's been some crazy discounts on these guitars lately for the Silver Skies, even the Core. I saw there's one store, I think in the UK or Europe, that had them for a really great deal, which I think would be cool. Yeah, do all the YouTube stuff. Whenever you guys watch my shit, do all the YouTube stuff. Give it a thumbs up, write a comment if you can. It just helps me out. But yeah, thanks, Bezel. Appreciate that. I got to do all the YouTube stuff for you guys sometimes, you know. Hey Zale, how's it going? So recently picked up a Two-Rock Trad Clean. Oh man, here we go. Initially was super pumped. Paired it with a 2R 112 cab. Have been struggling with it sounding very boomy, too much bass. I've heard that can be a thing with Two-Rocks and the open back cabs. I've heard that some people experience bass. Is a 112 open back or closed back? That'd be my first question, because I think you can get kind of the weird effect of it being open back than it being right up against a wall. I know that can kind of create some unpleasant sounds. Check your Two-Rock settings though on it, and what you're actually using. Like, do you have the bass circuit boosted? Do you have the bass pumped up too much? Where's your presence? Like on mine, my presence is at about 2 o'clock. Like, it's pretty well cranked. And the rest, like I have the bass boost engaged, but the bass knob is actually turned down. Well, it's like at noon. Play around with your settings. I feel like you can get like, I know you can get a lot of bass, so maybe try and EQ it out. If you have an open back cab, that might be something. Or throw a 112 as well. Maybe that's your issue. I don't know enough about these amps, to be quite honest, to give you the best advice. So if anyone knows or has any insight, throw it in the comments down below, or in the chat here. Maybe we can help solve it together. What do you think is the relationship between Mayer and Bonham? Massive, really weird for them to be almost exact same age, same circle. Clapton, BB King, yet never appearing together. Cloud would be sweet. There's one picture I found online, just randomly, of John and Joe Bonamassa together, and it was with Philip Sayce actually as well. It was the three of them together, and I thought, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, just three blues monster guitar players all together. It was like 2008 or sometime like that, I'm pretty sure, years ago. I don't know. I wonder why they never have talked or anything like that. Even just like at Crossroads, them being on stage together. How cool would that be? Bonamassa's got some really great strat tones as well. A few of his songs I really love for that strat style of tone. And that's why, again, I don't want to pivot myself too much into the Black One kind of sound, because there's a lot of strat sounds that I like. Love in a Love Song, that strat tone live is phenomenal. Same thing with I Know Where I Belong. Those are two of my favorite Bonamassa songs. And the strat sounds, so good. And like him using different dumbbells and jubilees, which has kind of made me want to eventually get still a vintage silver Jubilee Marshall, because it's the Frusciante thing as well as the Bonamassa thing. So that amplifier kind of covers a little bit more tones than what I initially thought it would be just doing the Frusciante thing. And for reference, I've tried copying your sayings for videos and whatnot. As well. Anyone got any insight as to why his 2 Rock is a little too bass? I'm just going to try and slow down and see. 112 and his close back. Okay, anyone got any advice for Zale? Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, brother. That's interesting. I'm not sure if it would be because you're using a 112 and you're getting too much bass. If you go to Jake Loosemore's YouTube channel, look at his 2 Rock Traditional Clean Mayor videos, try copying his exact settings. Because depending on what the way I set my 2 Rock in my videos, you might not like it, but try his. You might get something a little bit different out of it. And in full transparency between the 40 of you guys in the chat right now, I've gone back and I actually pretty much used a tweaked version of Jake's settings, because I think they are the best. That's what I use pretty much now. Something that's tweaked for what Jake Loosemore uses, because he's the man. Let's be honest. Shout out to Jake and his channel. So I go to his channel, try copying his settings and seeing. Then I don't know. It could be the speaker as well. But if it's a 2 Rock, I assume you're using just the TR speaker. I don't know. Maybe throw that question in the 2 Rock Facebook group. There'll be a lot of guys who are probably more qualified to actually help you answer that question too than I am. So that'd be my other suggestion, or even in the John Mayer Gear Lounge group on Facebook. Throw it in those two as well. Maybe you can get some other answers as well. Go back and catch up for the chat. Why do you think we never got a trio studio record? It seemed like Continuum started as a trio record, then went another direction. 100%. The trio was the whole foundation of Continuum. And then John just kind of expanded on it and kind of maybe commercialized it a little bit more. It's kind of weird too. We've got like studio recorded versions of Who Did You Think I Was? Good Love Is on the Way. Not a trio version, but trio song. And that's why I think Good Love Is on the Way just barely made it onto Continuum, because they recorded it for the Waiting on the World to Change EP. I don't know. Come When I Call even they recorded. So it's kind of interesting. But maybe live is like, that's where we shine. So we've done a live record. So maybe that's why they were like, it's not going to be as good. It's just going to be more mellow and subdued compared to what we are live, and live is where they shine. So I think that could be a huge part of it. Just imagine Blues G3 Mayor Bonamassa Stace. That'd be unreal. That would be so sick. I'd love to see like as Crossroads is kind of the thing. You get them all, but it's like maybe more collaboration could be cool. Can you talk about your sentimental connection clarity? Yes, I've done a video on it, but I can kind of, oh, sorry, I just kicked the camera. I can kind of summarize it for you all quickly. For whatever reason, the first time I heard that song, I just formed like a little like mental connection with it. And the song took on a meaning to me of like any feelings of anxiousness, stress. It's not temporary. And this moment is going to be gone at some point. Like, you know, sometimes taking the lyrics from it a little literally. I'll wait to find if this will last forever, and I'll pay no mind when it won't. I kind of took that as in like, you know, you're feeling a certain way. This moment's going to pass. Everything's going to be fine. And it somehow became the song that I'd listen to on repeat before a university final exam, a midterm. I'd be waiting outside the lecture hall. Everyone's like freaking out, and I'm just like bobbing to clarity. And then it worked. It helped calm me down. And even flying, for whatever reason, I really do not like doing. I'm a very nervous flyer. I'm just not comfortable doing it. I've flown quite a lot, and I've, you know, been on like I've been to Europe and stuff like that from Canada. So I've done like the whole like 10, 11-hour flights and stuff like that. And I'll do it. But I get very nervous doing that too. So then Clarity is literally like when the plane's taking off, Clarity is the song that more oftentimes than not, it's the song that I'm playing too. And it's just like, you're anxious right now. You're a little, on edge. It's okay. It's going to be fine. So that just kind of, I built that bond with that song. And so that's why, like, when John performed at the solo show I went to, I was like this close to crying a little bit. I just was like overwhelmed with emotion because I was just like hearing that song and going back in my mind after all these experiences I've had with it, these moments this song has helped me through. Just as it was a very, it was great. It was the best, probably the best moment I'll ever experience at a concert, if I'm being honest. It was really cool. So yeah, that's kind of why that song has that connection to me. Just like everyone, right? We all kind of take these songs and develop our own meaning with them and connection with them. And that's what Clarity means so much to me. And it's, you'd never guess, knowing me, you'd be like, oh, it's going to be a trio song or, something very guitar heavy. And for me, my favorite Mara song is a nice mellow acoustic song. And that's my favorite incarnation of it too, is the live versions when John is just performing it acoustically himself. I'd always just listen to those versions on YouTube. So the solo tour, I got the best version, in my opinion, of that song. All right, for SVT, Justin, can you please recommend the best pedal order for the Where the Light Is tone using these? Clean Boost, TS9, Tumnus, Blues Breaker. Throw the Tumnus out the window. Just kidding. But in reality, no Klon on Where the Light Is. So you're kind of, okay, here's what I would do. Clean Boost, Blues Breaker, TS9, Tumnus. Because then this way, you can boost the TS9 with the Blues Breaker. You can also boost the Klon with the Tube Screamer. So you're getting kind of like the more modern Mara sound, which is Tube Screamer into Klon, and then you're getting the continuum stacking with the Blues Breaker into TS9, then throw the Katana, the Clean Boost, whatever you're using, on before everything, and then that kind of accentuates it even more. That's what I would do. And then you kind of get the best of all worlds, where you get something to push a Tube Screamer pushing the Klon. Easy. 100% what I would do. Oh, okay, yeah, Mac, and I know you're in the know on this stuff too. No more meet and greets at all, hey? I guess I don't got to worry about it. Ordered a pair of Klein Jazzy Cat pickups for my parts caster build, and I'm putting it together. I won't get to build it till Thanksgiving, but I'm hyped. They're supposed to sound like the black one. Yeah, the Jazzy Cats, I've heard nothing but really great things about. So I think you'll be very happy with those. Those I've heard are really great black one style pickups. Have you ever bought a piece of gear you didn't like and tried to convince yourself otherwise? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Bought a piece of gear you didn't like and tried to convince yourself otherwise. I'm going to change the battery in my camera because it's yelling at me on the screen, and I'm going to think about that. So hold tight, everyone. Have you ever bought a piece of gear you didn't like and tried to convince yourself otherwise? I don't think I have, because for me, I've spent so much time, as you guys know, like experimenting with things and trying to like perfect certain sounds and failing a lot of the time. But I think if I just don't like something, I just don't like it. And it's like, no worries. If I don't like it, so other people like it, that's great. But if it's just not for me, it's just not for me. I don't think I've ever tried to convince myself that something was good when I didn't like it. I'm pretty honest about my opinion too with you guys of whether I like something or not. Oh, good. Yeah, I play with Jake settings. You play with Jake settings too. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you. I'd throw it in the Facebook groups and see if they can help you. I'm sorry that I can't be more help to you, dude. Oh, yeah, that's actually a great idea. I know people who do this. You put one of those like foam kind of pads underneath the amp, and that kind of helps with the kind of bassiness of the connection, I think, with the floor, something to do with that. A lot more technical than I'll ever probably understand, but I'd try that out for sure. I know people who do that actually. Yeah, I'd actually try this out too. I know people who do this. That might be a really great suggestion, Andreas. Oh man, people are talking about it. So, I mean, I think it did what it was set out to do, create some controversy and stuff. And it's like, it's all the opinion of the people who wrote the article. I think I just saw some of the lists. I think it was on, was it That Pedal Show in one of their Q&As? I think it was one they did with Jack, who used to be on Peachtree, or not Peachtree, Peach Guitars, Jack from Peach Guitars. They talked about it on that Q&A that I watched them one day. And yeah, some of the names they put kind of in what order I thought was laughable. You can't take that seriously. I just don't. The Rolling Stones is kind of a joke, my opinion. Their magazine's a joke. After what they did with Taylor Hawkins passing and taking stuff from Mike McCready and Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They took certain people's interviews and were very out of context in them. I know like Chad was very vocal about his interview and not being happy about it. Rolling Stones. My opinion, Rolling Stones, you guys are a joke for that. So yeah, kind of lines up with everything else. Do you think there's any chance John does a future collab with Incase for some more cases at any point now that he's not with Fender? Are those done and over with? Oh, I'd love that. I'm probably one of the few people who has the Cypress Mica Incase, and I actually use it whenever I take my guitars out. It housed my Silver Sky. Now it houses my custom shop Strat. Now I use it. I try not to abuse it, but it's gonna get a little beat up. But I wish they would. But I think the specialness of them is in those old school ones. And I think John's just probably past that at this point. And John be great hosting his kind of Crossroads thing. Oh, totally. He's got such a funny personality. And even when he hosted the Late Late Show, I remember watching those. And I thought he did a great job of it. And I swear there was something about John possibly getting like a TV hosting gig for like a show. There was some idea that was floated around. I think it'd be great just like hosting an event, a big concert, talking to the crowd and then be like, all right, next up's coming this and like, everything. He'd be great at that. Yeah, keep us updated on how that works out. I think these live streams are going to become a regular thing. So not with semi-regular. So next live stream, let me know how it comes up if you know. Josh Smith is in Joe Bonamassa's show every night producing him. Yeah, Josh Smith is a monster player. Gabe and I went with our girlfriends and saw Josh Smith at the Big Potato last year, and it was a wicked time. Best Leslie sound ever, him and Ariel's, which is the same H9 algorithm kind of thing. Yeah, Josh Smith is great, and the stuff he does with Joe as well, his work with Joe is phenomenal. And yeah, it's kind of crazy that you get such an incredible talent like Josh Smith, and then he's playing with Joe Bonamassa, where it's kind of like Joe's the star, but you look off to the side and you're like, yeah, well, the guy playing guitar next to Joe's pretty unreal too. So it's really great. Yes, that was a video I was going to make on that Cutaway Martin, the Flame Koa, the Triple O. And I just didn't, for whatever reason. I think other stuff came out, then I thought that the video might not perform well, so I just put that in the back seat. But it's another one where people ask about it, so maybe I'll do a whole video dedicated to it. I don't know the specs off the top of my head, but I did find a video where they talked about it. So yeah, I think I can do that in the future. No, none at all. I'm a Les Paul guy, but I don't know much about Les Pauls. So, or John's Les Pauls. That'd be another fun video as well. Maybe like John's top 5 oddball guitars or whatever. And it's like Les Paul for him is pretty oddball. But no, I don't know anything off the top of my head spec wise. I think does anyone know if John's Les Pauls are vintage or not? Because that'd be kind of cool. If he was playing like an actual like 59. Like imagine John playing a burst. That'd be pretty wicked. Hi Justin, what's your thoughts on John Mayer? Thank you. He's all right. He's average, Yeah. From Soul Life, why doesn't John Mayer use El Capistan? He's just liking the Providence stuff better. I think it's just all personal, subjective taste. The P Cornish TS being the absolute king for that sound. He's used the Boonar, the Providence Delay 80s, the Chrono. I definitely am someone who if John needs tap tempo, I know it's convenience wise just having the Chrono set up, but it's like the 80s it just has a different sound than the Chrono. It's like have 2 delay 80s on your board and set up for different sounds and different time or different delay times. and do that. But the El Capitan, I think, is just one that, I don't know, for whatever reason, he just never, I'm sure he has one, but just never actually ended up using it. Kind of like TS rate pretty much to the Providence stuff. Digitally handmade, thoughts on the far field replica pickups? Fantastic. I think if you're going to go with the Black One kind of south sound, I think, you know, the Jazzy Cats are really good. But that being said, just the fact that you have like Genesis and Foley have both gone into the one of 83 master built ones and fully replicated the pickups, I think those are very strong options as well because they've gone and done that. I don't know if Klein has done that or anything, and they're kind of inspired by sound. With the Jazzy Cats, I have no idea. So maybe they've done a lot like actual like hands-on experience as well with kind of Black One style pickups. But the far fields, I think, are a very strong shout for sure. Marifan, thoughts on the Blues Breaker reissue versus the original Blues Breaker? Also, the Morning Glory, better version of the Blues Breaker. Haven't tried the Blues Breaker reissue. I've heard different things. I've heard lots of people like it, and some people really don't. And then I've heard some people say they sound identical, and some people say they don't sound identical between the reissue and the old one. So I'd like to get another vintage Blues Breaker. Again, the prices have come down quite a lot since the reissue came out. So that could be something I'd be curious. Funny enough, I'm getting into a bit of a Blues Breaker headspace right now. On my board right now, actually, is my Ariel Posen Daedalus Plus. I'm being very careful, but I have that running right now. It was an always on Blues Breaker style sound for when I'm just kind of messing around or whatever. But yeah. Morning Glory, I'm sure it's better. Again, as always with this stuff, is subjective. It's a really great version from what I know. I have no experience with it either, so I'm sorry that I can't be of more. I don't have the ability to fully answer your question to the degree I would like to. Yeah, but I think either way, you're not going to go wrong with any of those options, for sure. I think the Blues Breaker sound, you know, it's been taken, it's been messed with, and people have their own takes on it. But overall, you're getting a Blues Breaker style sound. The one thing I will suggest, though, is that I think a lot of the time there's a lot of concern between like the difference between a TS9 and a TS10 and a TS808, and the difference between Blues Breaker reissue, Blues Breaker original, Morning Glory. Those are all great to worry about, those details, and the fact that if you're caring to that degree about your sound, I think is a very good thing. But when people on the gear page would say otherwise, I think it's a very great thing to care about things to that degree. What does, though, impact your sound more is your amplifier. So I'd be more looking into your amp setup for sure. That's just in general, not saying you're not doing that, but something I'm just trying to really stress a lot of the times when we talk about pedals to this degree is, you know, instead of spending all this money to go and get the differences between overdrive pedals, what's your amp setup like? Because your sound will have a greater impact on the amplifier you use and the amplifier's ability to really accentuate the differences between those pedals as well. That's something I just always like to throw out there. The Grando, how do you power your Qtron Plus? I always screw up the pronunciation of this brand. Is it Kiox? Kiox? Cioks. I use their power supplies. I love them. They're fantastic. I have the chocolate. It's like literally the longer brown chocolate bar kind of esque power supply, and it has a 24-volt mode on it. That is the ultimate power supply. It can power anything and everything. You literally just one plug and it works. It's brilliant. It was expensive, but I've never needed another power supply for a single board. If it's a monster board, then I run some of their like DC7, DC8 systems as well, where you can like have the dip switches to actually adjust the current and the voltage and everything. You can adjust settings on each little outlet, but that board or that power supply is the single best one. No worries. Any tips on making TS into clone sound good? Whenever I do it, I can't get the tone I want. I don't know. To be honest, any like tips? Just play around with the gain and the volume, and like if you're getting too much compression maybe out of it or something, or like it's just an unpleasant gain structure. I don't know. I don't know exactly any tips I could tell you to get the tone you want. I just kind of run my clone with like a light amount of gain just maybe a little bit more than John's. Enough volume so that like when I stack it, you do get the volume jump that you want with it as well, which I like running Tube Screamer into Clone personally because you get the Clone, which has more headroom than the Tube Screamers. So you get more open sounding instead of like, sometimes I feel like when you blast a Tube Screamer, it just gets a little bit like muddy sounding. James, how you doing, man? Nice to see you in the chat. We're just hanging out, talking, just spending some time with you guys. Nothing crazy. Justin, is there an order that John engages his overdrives, for example, TS or Katana as a boost during a solo? If you're talking about just like signal chain order in general, yeah, like John will generally right now do Tube Screamer into Katana. A lot of the time he's going just from straight clean to lead tones. So you kind of have a jump where he activates both on at the same time, both of them off. Depending, for example's sake, off the top of my head, for Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, unless he's playing with his volume knob, but maybe he'll throw the TS10 on first and then add the clone on afterwards when the solo kind of builds. Or sometimes for Helpless, after the main solo, he'll do kind of that like long extended solo and breakdown. You take the Tube Screamer off, leave the clone on, little things like that. Wait till tomorrow, where it's currently Tube Screamer into clone into Tube Screamer. The first Tube Screamer would be on, and then he activates the other two. But it's very situational, if that makes sense. Fender power supply is 12-volt outlet with a 1-spot voltage double. You have to find the right adapter afterwards. Yeah. There's lots of ways to get a workaround around it, but it is an absolute pain in the butt to power, that's for sure. The red plug that works with QChem Plus after the voltage double. I had to build a female to female adapter to make it work. Kind of scuffed it, but it works for me. There you go. As long as you make it work, and you're not going to shock yourself, obviously, that's fine. That's like all the Kiox stuff as well. It comes with the proper cords as well, so you don't get to stress about having the right plug or adapter as well for like center positive, center negative, like the red, green, all that stuff. Even when I did like the Frusciante pedal board and had all the different Moog pedals as well on it, I was able to power them all through their systems, which is convenience-wise. It's like you're going to spend the money. It's nice to just have it where it's you don't have to think. All-time favorite special song. Maybe that was Gravity you're talking about, or no, it's a little clarity. You need more coffee, obviously. Any videos you regret doing or don't like the final results? I really think your content keeps getting better and better. Sorry, I just had to check my phone. I do have some stuff going on at the hour turn here, so I could do until the next hour hits, or another like half hour. So keep going, because there's lots of questions I'm missing out on, or not missing out on, but taking my time to go through. Yeah, sure. I think there are videos I regret doing. Let's push my chair. My chair is broken right now. I need a new one. The back will slide out and then it'll fall off. And then if you're not careful, you'll just lean back and fall off the chair. Yeah. I think I've done a few videos where they were very cheeky. And maybe the way I went about it was slightly the wrong way, but it's such a fine balance of wanting to grow my channel, wanting to make content that kind of, it's not like edgy, but like controversy can sometimes be a good thing. People are talking about you, good or bad, as long as they get your name right, it's a good thing, right? Like that kind of saying that I just butchered. I did a couple of videos around John Frusciante where I was kind of giving them flack about his pedal board and how there was a stint there where it seemed to be going down almost every night, and like I was a bit hard on them, and then I actually got to like Dave Lee, like John's old guitar tech and stuff like that, and like people were calling for Henry to be fired, and that was very much like, whoa, like I did not want Henry to be fired at all, but I think, I think it was fair to be a little bit critical of like, like you guys got to have a system in place where for John, he's got to have a working rig, and yes, he's stubborn using all these old school pedals, but you just kind of got to figure it out. And I think I was being like, maybe it came across in the wrong way, in the wrong light, and maybe I could have controlled that conversation better. But those videos that both did very well because of what the content was about, those were ones that maybe I just regret my approach. The other one that like maybe I kind of regret slightly was the flack I gave John Frusciante about the Falcon, the White Falcon, and how It's just not the same one. So why did you buy one if you're not going to buy the exact same kind of model that you had before? I still stand by my stance that new White Falcon's ugly. But John sounds great with it. Just certain things like that where it's like you sit there and you try and think of videos to make, and I'm like, ooh, like, you know, this is kind of like a hot take I have, and maybe this will blow up a little bit. Grows the channel, but it's not necessarily the approach I always want to take. And so I've kind of learned from making a couple of videos like that, and, you know, I try and be positive in everything I talk about. If there's things I don't like, I just don't talk about it. If it's like certain aspects, I try not to be critical, or like, it's not critical but negative is kind of my thing. So any videos I've done like that, which there only been like really like 2 or 3, are the ones I kind of regret doing. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure if there's any other ones I don't like the final result of and how they went around. But definitely the goal is to keep growing the quality and everything, and just keep kind of growing on the channel and just making better and better stuff. So thank you for thinking that it keeps getting better and better. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, that system would work, I think, really, really good as well for the Qtron. What are your thoughts on TC Electronics and ND1 Nova delay? Google that, because I do not know what that is. Oh. Okay, so it's kind of funny. It's got I'm just looking at a link of it, and the link that they have where it's got the milliseconds says 2290. I wonder if that's was intentional or not. Yeah, so clearly it's a 2290 kind of thing, I'm assuming. Looks cool. I'll have to check that out. Love the documentary videos you made. They remind me of the live streams on the Gear Lounge. What do you think the next one you will do is? Yeah, that's kind of where the channel started. Doing the Gear Lounge podcast YouTube channel. If you guys haven't seen that before, the John Mayer Gear Lounge, the Facebook group I helped create with a few friends, just to try and build a community and connect with more people. The podcast was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work though, because I edited all of those videos myself and everything. And like, I wasn't as good at editing stuff, and I wasn't as efficient as I am now in the way I do things, but they were a lot of work. They were a lot of fun. And it kind of was like, all right, like a lot of people actually like they're tuning in and want to know what we want to say. And, you know, maybe I always kind of liked making YouTube videos and stuff like that. I just experimented with stuff over the years. Like me and my friends, we'd made Halo 3 videos back in like 2007 when Halo 3 came out. And like actually like MLG gaming videos and stuff. And I always had fun editing and doing stuff like that. So it was something that I was kind of liking revisiting. So yeah, those streams were fun. And I've thought about doing like another podcast sort of thing with friends, but it's like what we talk about, you know, everything like that. And it adds more because like this is all this stuff I do for the channel is extra to like my regular life. So it's like, you add another channel in, is that going to then sacrifice and take away from this channel? It would. So probably won't happen for a while. Next one I do, I think you might have missed it, but it's going to be on John's Fiesta Red 63 strat. That's the next one I have. I just got to make the video, but I have it like rough scripted and everything like that. Personal opinion on weight when it comes to strats. Is there a sweet spot in terms of resonance, like 7 pounds or less? Is weight at all relevant? I think it's relevant in terms of how the guitar feels in your hands, if you're comfortable holding it. I don't have enough experience with strats to like be like, oh yeah, like every single one I've played that's been in this range of weight sounds good. I think there might be something to it, but if it's too light, like guitars in general that are too light kind of freak me out, because it's like it feels like there's nothing there. And I like to kind of feel something. And then if you think of, well, there's more physical mass here in terms of the wood, and if tone wood is a thing, whether you believe it or not, then does having more of that then kind of make it sound better in a way, if it's, you know, a sweet spot of being like not too light. If you guys get what I'm saying, my strat is 7 pounds and 1 ounce, I think. So right on the cusp of going into the 6s. And I just wanted one that was on the lighter side. That's what everyone I trust recommended me to do. And so I trust everyone who was part of my strap buying process. So that's what I went to. But my Les Pauls are both boat anchors, like 12 pounds or whatever, right? So I don't know. I'm used to heavy weight, so I think it's more like a comfortability thing. but I don't know that much about it. John never used a J-Rocket Archer from Preston. Yes, he did. It was on his like B-Rig board, if you can think of it that way, during the Sawbrock kind of era last year. He had an Archer, the Jeff Beck version, on that pedal board. So like for the Alexander 23, Everyone Wants to Rule the World performance, for example, when he brought out the smaller pedal board, not his full-on touring pedal board, that had an Archer on it. Do I think John only owns more than one, or like only owns one Klon? Absolutely not. No way. He owns multiple for sure. Yeah. In my opinion, sounds the best. A lot more structure at the end of the day. Depends on the whole amp setup. Yeah, and as now I have a Vibroverb and I'm kind of wanting to structure my amp setup maybe a little bit more in the trio realm. I used to have a vintage 808 and I kept the TS10 because I liked the TS10 for doing the TS10 thing. But I think I'd like to get another vintage 808 at some point and retry it out and give it another shot. Morning Glory will never not be on my board. It's always on, permanent place on my board. Everything else is subject to change. Yeah, that's where I'm kind of at right now. I'm doing a little bit of Blues Breaker, always on, like Chris Buck and Ariel Posen. Any recommendations on a 12-inch speaker as for replacement in a 68 custom Fender Pro Reverb? Ooh, Pro Reverbs are wicked amps. That's awesome. Something responsive with a lot of headroom. I have 300 Canadian as for budget. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not a speaker guy for Pro Reverb. Message Jake Loosemore. I forget if Jake still has his Pro Reverb or not. He had it, then I think he was going to sell it. I'd ask him what speaker he threw in his Pro Reverb. He's the guy to ask, and he had a Pro Reverb. I think Gabe Bergman as well had one at some point. Those two would be the guys I'd ask and talk about. They know more about that stuff than I do. When here's a Tone Master on a Tone Master Deluxe because of Bedroom volumes. Yeah, I know my friend Sam Romy, and he had a Tone Master that he was getting for a while, and he really loved it. I think they're great for exactly lightweight, very convenient. You can get the tones you want at lower volumes. Should probably have an internal charge pump. No clue why they didn't do that. It makes no sense to me. It's not that easy. For Brent, I agree. It should. It's probably a pain in the ass, but at the same time, it's like you guys are Electro-Harmonics. You guys can do that. And I think that's what they should have done. 100%. 100%. What would you say are John's other well-known guitars after the Black One and 64? How would you rank them in terms of importance? Limit 3 guitars, excluding PRS. Okay. Monterey, for sure. That's got to be up there. The Monterey had such an importance in terms of the Continuum era and even the Trio era. That guitar was used so much. Like Slow Dancing to Burning Room from Where the Light Is. That's the Monterey. So that guitar, I think, is, if you're going to go Black One, 64 in that order, Monterey's right underneath it for sure. I think is like the third most important John Mayer guitar. Had to go and add another 2. And these questions are hard that you guys ask off of the spot. They're difficult. I'm sorry, kick the camera again. The leg of the tripod is like right underneath my desk. So if my foot's not kind of tucked underneath my chair, swing out, I hit it. 2 more guitars that are heavily important. I don't know. It's hard to like think of on the spot and then to rank things. But for sure, the Monterey. Limit 3 to 5 guitars. So I've done 3. Let's say that. You could start to consider guitars like the 335, just being like a different sound, that humbucker tone a lot. What else? I don't want to say the James Sig guitars because that's kind of like saying the PRS Silver Sky. But the Mayer signature Strats did have a place for a little while. But yeah, I don't know. Nope. Did not. Business degree. Night and day. Chalk and cheese. As Mick Taylor off of TPS says. It's just different. It's just different. And it's even the way he plays with that guitar in his hands. It's just, you can tell. It's like saying hello to an old friend you haven't seen in a while. Yeah, maybe one day. I'm still working on getting better at playing and even then more confident in playing. I suffer from red light syndrome a lot too, where like I'll play something and I'll be like, yeah, you know, that's I'm happy with how I did that. And then I've gone in the past and record things, and then next thing I know, 3 hours have gone by and there's not one single take I'm happy with. Like, not even kidding. And then I'm super pissed off and irritated. And then I'm just like, this is good enough. And then I post it and I'm just not happy with it. But covers too, it's like, for me in the channel, it's just like, it doesn't really add to anything. It's like, it's cool, I guess. And if some of you guys want to see that, it's like, I appreciate you guys even just wanting to see that. But at the same time, it's just like, I try and like focus on the informational side and educational side of everything I do. And if I post covers, it's like, there's nothing really you're getting out of it. So I'd rather stick to just like trying to explain tones and like the gain stacking video I did. It's like, my playing wasn't great in it, but it's like, as long as I can kind of convey what I'm trying to say and maybe help some of you guys out, or like help someone learn about how to gain stack properly for the mayor thing, then the video did the goal it was meant to do. Yeah, and that's why for the Vibreverb video, even I got Jake Loosemore to actually like record some clips for me and send them over with his Vibreverb. It's like, you'd rather listen to him than me. I'd rather do that. So it was a no-brainer, and Jake's a good buddy, and he was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll do that. So, yeah. If you can show an alien race just one mayor song to save humanity, which song would it be? Chat, what song would you... That is a funny question. I got to bring up John's actual list here. Helpless, because we'd be helpless against an alien race. Probably something off of Born and Raised, because I think the songs on there have a lot of message. And they're just, if they obviously, assuming the aliens, can't even believe we're discussing this, assuming the aliens can understand us. Maybe like If I Ever Get Around to Living. Yeah, maybe If I Ever Get Around to Living. I love that song. Even the live versions are just so wicked. Favorite reverb? I use amp reverb, so I don't really have a favorite reverb. I really want to try Victoria Reverberato, though. The London guitarist got one, an actual like old school version with the same logo as Mayor's. Just has that vibe. He loves it. I really want to try one out. We ever do a rig rundown of the trio era? I remember you said you were going to do one soon, but never did. There is a video talking about the rough rig of the trio on my channel, and I tried to organize it into playlists in terms of the era. So if you go to the John Mayer Trio playlist on my channel, I should have like a rough rig rundown of some of the pedals and stuff like that. If you're talking about all the guitars, maybe I could do like another big video on all of that. Justin, did you ever experiment with Adrenaline 2 or 3? Filter sequences are amazing, but it's kind of hard to handle. Generally, I don't trust myself. The tone got worse with the switch to Qtron. Long time ago, I borrowed a buddy's Adrenaline 3. The tone suck out of that thing was terrible. I think that pedal in general, in my opinion, is pretty trash, just in terms of the design and everything like that. It's not great, but for the 3 sounds you need out of it, it sounds fantastic. If you could isolate them to not having the drum track, which I'm not sure if you can or not, that'd be great. But then I remember when I did like the Heartbreak Warfare thing, it had kind of like the drum beat going at the same time, and I was like, hey, this is annoying. I don't want that. So I'm not sure how you filter that out of your amps and stuff like that. I got to experiment with it again. This was like 3 years ago. It was before the channel was everything. I had one for a little bit. If my friend still is actually my guitar teacher, if my guitar teacher still has that pedal, maybe I'll try and borrow it off him, but I think he sold it. But it's something I've actually wanted to revisit because I really love Heartbreak Warfare. So if I can maybe figure that out, that'd be cool. Sonic Blue, my Sonic Blue Strat, #1 by far. I love that thing to death. Nathan, do we think it's smart that John is waiting to produce an album for at least another year out? I think it is if we would have singles that are out and then a year or two would go by till the album, and then those singles that we've had for a year or two are going to wind up on it. If he did like what he did with Solid Rock, then I think this is the smart choice, because I know a lot of us, myself included, were really disappointed in getting Carry Me Away. I guess I just feel like a new light on Solid Rock. That took up 3 spots that we could have potentially gotten some really great new songs of. And we'd already had those songs for so long. They'd already been performed on tour for like a whole tour. So I think this is the better outcome, if that's the case. If like then we get new music sooner, but then, you know, we then when the album comes out, you're like, okay, great, I've known that song for a year and a half. That's me personally. Which pedal would you recommend for the gravity tremolo vibe sound? Flint is what John uses. The Flint is great. Trem in general is a hard effect, I find, to find really good pedals that do it. If it's not the Strymon Flint, the Jam Pedals Harmonious Monk for sure. That pedal's phenomenal. Those would be the two. That's a sound almost that I'd be more like, you really need to get a good one to get a good sound. Or the Keeley Hydra, that pedal as well. Those would be my three. But that's an effect where I'd be like, in order to get an authentic sound and one that's really just, when you just hear it, it's the sound in your head. That's one where I'd say go a little bit bigger and get like a really good one. Running Blues Breaker into Tube Screamer into Clone. When I run the Blues Breaker, it sounds clear, happy with it. Then run the Clone, it sounds thin, not like the tone. Finding it difficult to get a good balance of the settings. Oh, yeah. That's a... Breaker sounds clear, happy with it. Run the Clone. I think for some people, the Clone can be a bit like almost that, like, nasally is maybe not the right word, but I think a lot of people, maybe the Clone just in general isn't the pedal for them. I'd almost suggest just running like a Dumble style pedal after, like a Dumbleoid or a Zen Drive or something along those lines after, and just see if that's a better sound for you in general. Just worry about trying to thicken the tone. Could be, depends. What Klon are you using? Is it an actual Centaur? Is it a Ryra? Is it a, what's the one Bill's making now? The red one. You know, the KTR. What clone is it? Because when I look for clones, there are two things that I look for: the smoothness of the gain structure and how thick it sounds. Because if you're finding it to sound thin, that's actually something when it comes to clones that I've kind of learned in my experimentation with my Centaur and then clones, is that some get the smoothness of the gain down, but others, it doesn't sound as thick and as full as it should with a Centaur. Those are kind of the two things, at least to my ear, that I pick up on. So for example, the Cherrytone Centura, I really actually do not like that pedal. Personally, when I tried my example of my Centaur versus the Centura, I did not like it. The gain structure was not smooth, and that was the most unpleasant part to my ear. The Archer Icon has that smoothness down a lot better, in my opinion. However, if to you, the thickness and fullness of the sound is what you're more concerned about, for me, at least in that specific example of testing out two different clones together, I noticed a big difference in how the Centura had a lot more fullness to the sound versus the Archer, where the Archer sounded a lot thinner. So that actually is something you just mentioned that triggered that memory of mine. I haven't shot out a lot of clones since I got my Centaur, because it's just money that it's just like I'm shooting it out just to figure it out, unless a buddy of mine has one and brings it over or something. It's just at this point an unnecessary expense for me. But that is one thing in the few clones I have tested out where I've noticed it's like, all right, this one's gain structure is a little bit fizzy, a little bit harsher sounding, just not as pleasant to my ear. But then this one doesn't sound as full. Those are just two different pedals where they each had one component, but not both, that I look for now. Justin, did you find leaving the black dust cover off on a Strat or the back? No, I don't buy into that theory at all. Personally, it's just easy and it's just a vibe. So on mine, I have the back plate off. Like I said, I put those raw vintage springs in it, and then I never put it back on. But I don't buy into the fact that it makes a difference in the tone. Say what? I don't listen to a lot of SRV, to be quite honest, Tom Riddle. I really appreciate Stevie and love his playing this tone, but he's not that's just not something I listen to that much. Signature. Yeah, you know what? That too. If you're talking about the list of three, that was kind of his original signature. Yeah, the original SRV signature strap. Throw in there for number 4 for sure. I think of John's Late Show performance with John Legend. Gibson L5 tone was great. Ed Sheeran and Bob Weir. I don't remember the John Legend one. The Ed Sheeran one was wicked. I loved that one. The Bob Weir one too. I loved both of those tones. I thought they were really good. Hi, Justin. Do you think there is a reason John uses a Crossroads 335 instead of a late 60s 335, or why doesn't he use Guild as much? Ooh, there was someone I was talking with who messaged me on Instagram and was the guy who actually sold John his Crossroads 335. And he mentioned to me that John bought one, didn't like it, ordered a second one, and then really liked that one, which is kind of interesting that in the run of those guitars, even John found one that he didn't like out of it. I assume he owns a vintage, but maybe at the time he wasn't looking to buy a vintage 335, and maybe he was like, like I just want vintage Strats more, and for what he used the Crossroads 335, that was a brilliant guitar and all the guitar he needed. Maybe that's why. Yeah, that could be really cool, actually. The most influential guitars John has ever made. Yeah, that could be cool. I wish. That'd be kind of funny. I think tone samples with pedals would be better than covers. Exactly. And that's kind of what I want to do. And that's kind of the goal with the channel. Like I said, though, the intimidation factor of my playing too comes into play, and, stuff like that. But thoughts on Milkman the amp? Yes. Something I can answer because I've actually owned one of these. I had a Milkman the amp. I really liked it. It was a piece of gear that I bought at kind of a pivotal time in my kind of gear journey, where I had kind of gone all in on the John Frusciante thing. So my main amps were 2 Marshalls, and I was using that for clean tone while I was waiting for my 2 Rock to come in. And just playing an amp like that was more Fender styled was just like, wow, this is big cleans. It sounds great. I think it's really, really nice. Definitely kind of borderline between the digital versus like a real amplifier. There's some magic in there, kind of blending both worlds. I thought it was really great. I really enjoyed it, and it's a piece of gear that if you're looking for something that's more lightweight, cost effective, sounds great at lower volumes, that is a piece of gear that I would recommend for sure, and kind of, in my opinion, bridges the gap a little bit more than something like a Fractal or a Helix will do. So yeah, that's a piece of gear that I really enjoyed, actually. Yeah, me too. Like I said, when I talked about what I hoped for with the Crossroads performance, that was a guitar I hoped to see. The Crossroads guitar at Crossroads. But no. I've heard rumors of various things. Some of them contradict themselves. Some guys like, oh yeah, like I know this, or I do this and that, and I can tell you that this is happening, but hush hush. Then I'll get another message a month later. Yeah, I do this, and I know so and so, and this is what's happening. I've heard conflicting information that it's happening, that it's not, that it's gonna be this, that it's gonna be that. So I have no idea. And like I said, it's with anyone kind of messaging me on the internet, I take everything anyone tells me with a massive grain of salt. It's like my brothers, sisters. You guys ever watch Spaceballs when Lord Helmet's like, oh yeah, I was your father's brother's cousin's nephew's roommate, like it's sometimes like that, where that's a great movie if you've never seen it, by the way. Gives you a little insight onto my humor as well, and my mental level, where I'm 12 years old up here. But yeah, I've heard different things. I don't know. Like hand to heart, I have no idea what's going on. It very much looks like it's being made, but no one has ever given me anything that like is concrete yes or no. And that's where you have to be careful as well in the position I'm in, where leaking stuff and everything like that. I don't want to do it. No StreamYard, I don't want to end the stream just yet. Another like I got something going on once the hour turns, so I'll have to call it pretty quickly on that. But let's go for a little bit longer. I don't know. Hand on heart, I have no concrete evidence that anything is happening, or that anything is not happening. Just based on the evidence I've seen, I believe personally that something is happening, but that's about it. Out of my mind tone, when I watched the Gear Lounge, you guys said it was just tube screamer, but there's no other tone with that sustain plus the gain sound. Well, I don't remember ever saying that. The sustain on that part is very huge. And the one thing I'd be careful about with where the light is in general and the tones on that is there is post-production on it. There is some footage from the actual Where the Light Is performance. That was a video I was going to make actually, and then I forgot about. Actual like YouTube footage of Where the Light Is, from just someone that shot it from the crowd versus what you actually hear on the record after the post-production. So there is some magic to John's guitar tone, not a lot, but there is some. So keep that in mind, everything about Where the Light Is in general. But I'm not sure if we said it was TS, that was years ago too. So my knowledge and everything has obviously increased since then. I don't know. I don't think that's maybe true. That's just a Tube Screamer. When I found that Mayer had a Clapton Strat, it definitely made me reconsider if his Strats were used for Sawbrox. They didn't fit that vibe. Yeah, the Clapton one is really cool too. Yeah, the Clapton one was used a lot for the Search for Everything album, from what I kind of know. I think that's pretty evident. Maybe the Strats were used a little bit more than we think. Who knows? I also enjoy When You're Gonna Wise Up Boy for part of If I Ever Get Around. Yeah, I like that for sure. John should do a throwaway album with the songs that didn't make the albums, like Over and Over, even if they aren't fully finished. Yeah. Well, I think Over and Over was the one, though, that he said it was too good, and he was scared to make that song, I think, right? He kind of, I think that's the song he was talking about when him and Keith Urban were having that conversation of when there's a song that Keith Urban said no to because he knew that that was a song that he was going to have to perform every single night till the day he died. And he didn't want to have a song quite like that. Maybe that's when John was kind of agreeing with him. Maybe I think Over and Over was the one that John had said it was too perfect. But like a B-sides album would be really cool, or like the Vault, something like that. Kind of miss Sawbrock era. The solo tour is really cool, but Sawbrock felt like a really short era. Yeah, it was super short. And I think part of it had to do with 2020 and still dealing with the logistics of going around the world and everything. I think that's why, too, John right now has only done Canada and the US. It's a lot easier to get into Canada right now than it is the Europe and everything like that, just logistics-wise. So I think that's kind of why Sawbrock did get a bit of a short end of the stick, for sure, in terms of a tour. That era was a lot of fun. The solo tour is great, and I think years from now we'll look back on it and be like, this was a really wicked album, or an album tour. But I do think Sawbrock kind of got the short end of the stick for a while. Using a Cherry Tone Centura clone answered question before. I also was wondering why gear fans ever do like meetup or something, share gear. Yeah, it's one of those things where I've debated doing it too. If like I go back to like Los Angeles or something like that for a Mayer show, maybe doing like a meetup before or something like that, or doing like a big gear thing. Like that'd be hard to do, but like a few of my friends, they all went, like a bunch of the guys went to John's show in New York City for Sawbrock, and they did like a big gear hangout and stuff like that, and everything, kind of like a little Mayer-con, just like a very small, intimate thing. I really regret not going because at the time I couldn't commit to just doing all that stuff when we were kind of planning out the tickets for the shows and everything. And then just other stuff I had going on personally, and didn't work out. But I really wish I would have gone. That'd be cool maybe to do something one day. We're like, if we can get a bunch of people together, a bunch of gear in the room, that'd be a lot of fun. If you're using the Centura, that's interesting because that was one I found that was fuller sounding than others. I don't know though. Maybe experiment with different clones, or like I said, maybe move on to a different pedal. Maybe the Klon sound. If you've never really enjoyed the Klon sound, the Klon's tone might not just be for you. Could be it too. Robin, when we're gonna hear you actually play the guitar? One day, when I buy mics and actually get a recording set up again. Milkman 300 watt. 300 watts. Yeah, those things are insane. Sure is what the pedal's based on if you ever want to try it. I also have a Journal 3 I can send you. Mac, I appreciate that, dude. Maybe one day we'll figure something out. That'd be really cool. What would you say is a good affordable pedal or pedals for the Continuum era tone? As long as you go Blues Breaker and Tube Screamer, everything else is kind of, extra at that point. Blues Breaker, like a Morning Glory or a Prince of Tone, something like that. Any like Tube Screamer clone, like a Bonsai or something as well, would be really great, honestly. Just as long as you cover the Blues Breaker and the Tube Screamer sound, that'd be the thing. But Continuum era tone, mainly from your amps, is going to get you the most component of that sound. So in the video of Where the Light Is, slow dancing YouTube, and then he messes up the bend in the outro solo, the pitch correction. No, I haven't. Ooh, that's interesting. No, I'm gonna make a note of that. That's kind of interesting. And that's the one thing about live albums like that where I'm just kind of like, you lose a bit of the magic. And that's why maybe for some people, slow down or where the light is too perfect. You know, you get like the auto tune on his voice just a little bit, and you get if they're pitch correcting certain notes. I think that's just I kind of you lose the magic. Yeah, it's the Corey Wong podcast he talks about over and over. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that song being too perfect. But then it's like, you get robbed of them. Hummingbird 2 coming back was wicked. That's such a great song. I kind of forgot about that one, but it's fun. It's a good song. And hopefully, maybe some of these songs get added to the mix or something eventually. And look at that. I'm all caught up here. I do have to run. I only planned on doing this for an hour. But, like I said, every time we do this, it's fun just chatting with you guys and hanging out for a bit. Greatly appreciate all of you guys taking the time to come hang out. And these have been fun. So I'll keep doing them on a semi-frequent basis for sure. And then maybe get some guests on too to chat and hang out if you guys are interested in that. That could be fun as well. Kind of doing some collaborative live streams. Last question I'll answer here. Favorite Mayor Strat? 64, I think. Or Monterey. I think for me. The black one is the black one, but the 64 and the Monterey are just so special. To me at least. Thank you. Yeah, I try and do that. It's like I'm not coming here with really a plan or anything like that. Just to kind of hang out with you guys and chat and answer any questions and connect with you all. And it's fun too just to see people, from last stream as well, tuning in again, which is really fun. Just get to kind of know you guys some more and you guys to know me a little bit more. My whole kind of vibe maybe comes across a bit better on live stream than it does in videos where I try and be a little bit more perfect and, all that kind of jazz. Housekeeping things before we end. Again, chairman of the board's podcast interview on Vertex is going to be going live tomorrow. It's not live, but we recorded. You guys know what I'm saying. They're doing a live premiere of it, but we recorded it 2 weeks ago. So please go check that out. We're not plugging any pedals or anything to do with any of the brands that are associated with chairman of the boards. It's literally just a conversation about Mayor gear. So if you guys go there, show your support for me and the channel. I'd really appreciate that. That'd mean a lot. Like I said, would love to get on Dipped in Tone as well, maybe one day, or just talk with more people and grow my connections and just stuff like that. So that'd be really appreciative if you guys tune in at some point this week when that goes live. That'd mean a lot to me. Ed Sheeran G-Shock, it's cool. Not quite as much thought went into it as when John did his G-Shocks. Ed was just like, let's just do my album. And I mean, it's cool, but I didn't buy one personally. For sure, we'll do these maybe every couple weeks, I think. As long as life for me can, allow it. I had a very chill weekend for the most part. So we'll do that at some point. I doubt it. John's kind of mentioned on YouTube is kind of you get them. So I don't think we'll really see anything. Unfortunately, I'd love another live DVD, but maybe one day. McCarty 594, Edge of Desire, if you don't know that one already. Every day I have the blues from where the light is. It'd be the same thing like Blues Breaker, Tube Screamer. It's all the same components. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think if he used, I think he used the Univibe for that solo. Did he? I'm blanking on it, but I think maybe Univibe was used as well for parts of it. Assassin for sure. My favorite Balisay song. Okay, you guys, I got a jet. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, really appreciate it. Chairman of the boards, tomorrow I'll be live on there. Not live, you guys know what I'm saying. Just really cool where it's like Joey Landreth was on there 2 weeks ago or whatever, and then I'm on there now. So to see my name up beside Joey is just an absolute that's crazy. That's wild. So that's pretty cool though, that those guys reached out and wanted to chat with me. So yeah, please go check that out. Again, be really grateful you guys show your support and everything for me on there in the comments and stuff like that. That'd be great. And yeah, we'll do a live stream again really soon. Go check out the 2 videos I've posted lately that aren't doing super well at this time. The heavier things rig rundown from us never knowing what pedals John had used before. It's actually having a factual confirmation and list of what pedals he had in the rack unit, please go check that video out, as well as the one on the deep cuts that I made and posted yesterday. If you guys haven't seen those, please check them out. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in again, as always. Really appreciate you guys, and have a great rest of your weekend. And we'll do another one of these hangouts soon. I'm really enjoying them. Cheers, guys.